Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Germ here. Another day, another tier list. This whole week we are running position by position through the LEC, ranking pretty much every single player in the LEC by the end of this week, as we kind of wrap up and put behind us the LEC spring split regular season, and we head into the LEC playoffs coming up this weekend. I want to, kind of give an updated thoughts and opinions on all the different players and stuff now that we've seen a whole split of a lot of them. For some of these guys, only maybe half a split here and there, and yeah, just kind of not only track how they did this past split, but how I kind of am feeling about them headed into playoffs, or even headed into the summer split for a lot of these guys that aren't going to be making the playoffs or are going to be flaming out early, because this LEC split was really fun, and we found out a lot about some of these different guys, and some of these guys were really excited about their futures, and so many of them grew so much this split, and so many of them defied our expectations or let down our expectations, and yeah, so I thought the LEC is always interesting. Mid lane is obviously always like a high profile position to talk about, so this one should be fun. But before we get into that, I just want to mention real quick, if you guys have not already, please take a second and hit that subscribe button. If you are not subscribed already, I would appreciate it a ton. It obviously helps me out running those numbers up, but it also helps you guys stay up to date on all my latest content. We have a ton of stuff coming really soon. We got the rest of these tier lists to get through. We have the LEC playoffs starting up. LCS playoffs are already going. MSI is right around the corner, so a ton of videos, ton of content coming your guys' way. You don't want to miss out on any of that. I think like 55% of the people that watch my videos aren't subscribed, so there's still a lot of you out there, and we got some room to run these numbers up a little bit more. With that being said, let's get right into this. Going to be giving my updated thoughts and opinions on all these guys. Again, this is post regular season, but before the playoffs, depending on when you're watching this video, running through all 10 mid laners. I can maybe give my thoughts about Magic Felix a little bit as well, but let's get into it. So first up, coming into the season, I had Nukeduck in the F tier, and people flamed me a little bit for this. Honestly, they were like, and I even agreed to an extent. They're like, Nukeduck is a veteran. While yeah, maybe he's not great, he's for sure going to be better than some of these young guys. And I understood a little bit, but I didn't necessarily agree. Obviously, I had him in the F tier. I had him as the lowest ranked mid laner coming into the season, partly because I didn't think Nukeduck was that good, partly because I didn't think he deserved to keep getting shots in the LEC. Also, sorry, I dropped my pen real quick, but also partly because I thought Astralis was not going to be very good, just like a lot of other people, and I thought it was going to be difficult to stand out and perform well on a young, inexperienced, probably not very good team in the LEC, so I thought that'd be difficult. I thought Nukeduck had a lot of things going against him, so that's kind of why I had him start out in the F tier, but I could see you could make the case for him maybe deserving to be a little bit higher, just because he was a veteran, and at times he has been decent, at times he's been solid, at times he's even been pretty good, but things did not go well for Nukeduck this season. Things did not go well for Astralis. He was not that good, and obviously about halfway through the season, I don't remember if he played 11 games or maybe he played 7 games and Magic Felix played 11. I don't know. Something like that. They both pretty much played half and half of the season. Astralis looked much better once Felix came in. Felix actually had a pretty good split, and Nukeduck just looked like he wasn't cutting it. And just being as veteran of a player as he is, he's gotten his experience and stuff. You don't expect him to be developing too much more. Maybe he was a good veteran to have around the younger guys and stuff, and to be able to teach them a little bit and to help them grow and to help them in the off season and scrims and getting ready for the season and everything. But just as far as working towards the future, I think Astralis is in a much better position with Felix, and hopefully they'll be able to train him up and get him going, and he's obviously a bright young talent that is people really believe in. If he can put it all together, everyone knows he has like the raw talent and ability to really do it. So I think in a lot of ways it was a very smart move by Astralis, even if it doesn't work out, even if Felix maybe ends up sucking in summer split or whatever. I still think it makes more sense to be riding with a more inexperienced guy as opposed to a mid laner who you kind of know what you're getting with at this point. So I have Nukeduck. I had him in the F tier coming in the season. I would still have him in the F tier now. I would not change anything there. To me, F tier kind of means doesn't deserve a spot in the LEC, maybe deserves to be demoted or deserves to be in the academy or European regional leagues or whatever for a little bit longer. Yeah, I don't see Nukeduck as deserving of an LEC spot at this point in his career at this time, and yeah, and Astralis obviously believes so as well. Next up, we got Vetheo in the mid lane. So he had kind of an up and down year for Misfits. He had some time. I mean, overall, really solid for a new guy coming in the LEC, playing mid lane, which is a tough position. overall, this was probably a down year for mid lane in the LEC. The positions changed a lot this year. I know they had a lot of, obviously, the big item changes and stuff to mid laners and everything. Mid lane kind of changes the position as a whole. Even all around the world, it has a lot less like priority and agency and stuff in games. We're not seeing as many pop-off mid lane performances and everything. And, mid lane in the LEC wasn't as exciting and fun maybe as it usually is. But Vetheo was coming in with Misfits. He had a couple banger games to start the season. His Zoe was very, very feared. It drew a ton of bans. And even though he came up a little bit short in the last game of the season with a playoff spot on the line, he got his Zoe. He wasn't able to come through. This was still a guy who was very, very inexperienced and really surprised and shocked a lot of people. Yes, he did make some, maybe some rookie mistakes sometimes. Maybe he didn't live up to his potential the most. But this was a guy on a lesser team, not even a playoff team, who was still able to stand out and draw a bunch of bans and win over the respect of other LEC players and coaches and really everyone in the league. And coming into the season, I wasn't super hyped up for him. I wasn't super excited for him. I thought he had some promise and some potential, but I was looking at some other guys, maybe like JaeYool a little bit more than him. But Vetheo did shock and surprise me in a lot of ways. And, I had him as one of the weaker mid laners coming into the season, in my opinion, but he definitely defied that. And I don't know exactly where to put him. I could see high B tier, but I kind of want to put him in low A tier. Again, yes, did he make some rookie mistakes, but heading forward into the future, I think this guy has a ton of talent. And maybe if he was on one of the better teams, I think he could be popping off even more. I think this guy has a very, very bright future ahead of him. If he continues to keep developing, especially at the pace he is right now, he could be one of the best mid laners in the LEC in the next coming years and just really start to be really, really good. So, maybe this past season was like a B+ type split for him. But again, I'm not just looking back. I'm kind of looking forward to kind of a combination of the two, using the past to kind of, predict the future. To me, he's an A tier mid laner right now. And this one could blow up in my face. He could definitely have we've seen people have one good split and then kind of suck after that or be like a flash in the pan type deal. But I think Vetheo is a very, very talented player. I think he's here to stay. I think he's an A tier for me, and that's kind of a big jump, obviously, going from C to A, from like low C to low A. Big jump, but I think he does deserve it. I think he's in that top 5 conversation in the LEC for sure. Next up, we have Blue coming into the season. I had him in the C tier. I had him placed in like the 8th spot for mid laners in the LEC. This is a guy who, coming in the season, I didn't know exactly what to expect. I hadn't seen a ton of him in the past. I'd heard about him. I knew some people were really, really hyped for him. I had some people saying he was going to be a top 5 mid laner in the LEC for sure, that I was kind of sleeping on him, that I was maybe wrong about him, that I was overlooking him, and I was like, okay, I mean, we'll see. I always like to have tempered expectations with inexperienced and rookie players, because you never know how somebody's going to make the jump from a European regional league or to the Turkish league or whatever to the LEC or to the LCS or to any of the major leagues. It can be a big shock for a lot of people. And then again, also, I didn't know if SK Gaming was going to be that good, and it's sometimes hard to stand out on these lower teams, and I was really not convinced of how good SK was going to be. And they, in the end, they were just a pretty middle of the road team. They were an average team. But as far as Blue personally, I was not really impressed with his play. I think he was one of the factors kind of holding SK back. I think he was not very consistent. I think he could have been better. I think some of the people saying he was going to come in and smash the LEC right away were probably overhyping him a little bit. But in my opinion, I don't think he underperformed my expectations. I think he performed pretty in line with my expectations. I thought he'd be a C tier, pretty meh mid laner, and I think that's what he ended up being. Did he have some weeks and some games where he looked pretty solid and pretty good? Yeah, but overall, over the course of the season, when I look back, I'm not super impressed with him. I think he was one of the weaker mid laners. I think SK could certainly do better in the mid lane, but again, he's still inexperienced. He is only just one split under him. He could still develop and get better for the future, sure, but he hasn't shown a ton of that promise and talent just yet. He's not, he didn't make a crazy big strides over the course of the season or anything like that. So I had him in the C tier coming in, and I feel pretty comfortable leaving him there right now. High C tier. He's solid. He's not bad. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve a spot in the LEC or anything, but he definitely needs to continue to improve, needs to continue to get better, and really needs to step up as a whole for him and SK to have more success in the future. And I don't think that's too crazy. Next up, we're getting into Milica for Vitality. This is a guy who I was actually pretty excited for. I mean, this has been a prospect that people have been talking about for the last couple of years. I know he finally burst onto the scene for Vitality last year, had some big carry performances, had some good games, had some bad games, a little bit inconsistent, just kind of, you know, is all young, rookie, inexperienced, whatever you want to call it, players are. And people were hyped up for him, and this guy actually had a lot of fans, like, coming up from European Regional League and stuff, and he didn't have the most amazing performances, most amazing stats, anything like that in 2020, but I was still willing to give him a chance. You know, people saw Vitality as a middle-of-the-road team. Some people even saw him as a little bit higher than that. And, you know, the expectations were kind of high for Milica to take a big step in the second year. Kind of as like that full-time starter now with the full confidence and the full offseason and everything. But we know what happened to Vitality this split. Vitality as a whole really was underwhelming for so many different reasons. So many different players underperformed, and Vitality took a nosedive early in the season, and it continued pretty much throughout the whole season. Things did start to get a little bit better for Vitality towards the end of the split. Once Crown Shot came in, you know, every once in a while they were able to win some games, but they were a very weak team in the LEC. They didn't show a ton of promise. It didn't show a ton of talent, and a lot of their players looked really weak, and Milica was definitely one of them. This guy did not have good stats. He did not look good in a lot of games. A lot of just poor performances from him. Very low damage numbers, low KP, low KDA. You know, just doing not much of anything. And again, he played on a not very good team, so it's hard to separate the team from the players and know, like, if we put Milica on G2, would he still be the worst mid laner in the league? You know, I don't know. That's hard. If we put Caps on Vitality, I think he would still stand out. I think he would still look really good. If we put Milica on G2, I still think he would be pretty bad, but would he be better? Yeah, probably. So it can be hard to know exactly where to put people, but in all, I do believe that Milica was kind of that F tier for me. To me, he was not really deserving of a spot in the LEC, and that's kind of what it looks like going forward. It looks like Vitality is, I wouldn't, if you made a case for him to be a C tier, I would not argue that at all, but I do think F tier. We know that Vitality, it looks like they are going to be replacing him, so maybe that's, you know, influencing my decision a little bit. They are wanting to go after Nemesis, so Vitality Nemesis could be a thing happening in the near future, or the rumor is it has it that they are going to be looking at other ERL mid laners. I don't know if we've heard specific names or anything like that, but there's obviously a bunch of really hype, really exciting, really interesting kind of names out there. Who knows exactly what's going to happen, but it does sound pretty close to official that Milica is not going to be back for Vitality. So this, you know, poor split, poor showing did not really work out for him, and it's really unfortunate. And obviously you never like to see somebody lose a job or anything, but I don't think his performance is really warranted. Vitality, you know, keep giving him an opportunity, especially if they're able to land somebody like Nemesis, or just land another hype, exciting young mid laner and prospect to try out and give an opportunity. So hopefully he can, you know, go back down to the ERL, find some more success, work his way back up, hopefully use this to grind and stuff, but definitely not a good year for Milica, or Milica fans, or Vitality fans, really. Next up, we're getting into Abbedagge coming into the season. This is a guy who was very inconsistent. Obviously, last year he had faker Dage moments, and he had everything in between, all the way down to, I don't know what you call the opposite end of that, whatever, bronze Dage. Schalke as a whole was very inconsistent team. Abbedagge is definitely a talented guy. He's had big carry performance and moments, but overall that inconsistency is just tough for me. In the LEC this year, you know, Schalke had a lot of the same inconsistency issues. They beat G2, they beat Rogue, and they lost to some bad teams. They were just kind of all over the place. Overall, looking at the season as a whole, I don't think Abbedagge was bad by any means, but I also don't think he was overly good or great or anything like that. You know, those aren't really words I would use to describe him. I think overall, as a veteran player, he was just pretty regular, pretty average. He had some good games. He had some bad games. He helped them win some games. He played a part in them losing some games. Overall, I think if Schalke wants to do anything in this playoffs, or if they want to be a better team in the summer split and have a better record and better performances, or maybe even fight for a world spot, I think Abbedagge is definitely going to have to be better. You know, he was not good enough. He's not consistent enough, and he has the talent. We've seen him go through stretches of being way better than he looked in the summer split this year. But or in the spring split this year, but he just, it was just one of those splits where he didn't really shine. He didn't really stand out to me, for much of anything. So I had him as like a low B tier coming in. I think that was a pretty accurate analysis of what was going on and what Abbedagge kind of brings to the table as a player. He didn't overperform. He didn't underperform. I'm just kind of leaving him there. I think low B tier is still pretty accurate and pretty fair. I think, honestly, I think this mid lane tier list was one of my better tier lists coming into the season, where I think I got a lot of these guys really, really close, or at least really, really close to what I still think about them now. Maybe your guys' opinions are different, or maybe you'd move them around, but what I thought about a lot of these guys coming into the season is still what I'm thinking about now. Milica, I did have a pretty big miss on. Maybe Vetheo I had a big miss on, but he was kind of hard to tell. But I think I got Abbedagge pretty close to spot on. Gotta get some hydration in. All right, next up, we got JaeYool. This is a guy who I am pretty sure I'm on the record as saying that I thought was going to be the best of this group of new young mid laners in the LEC. I was hyped up for him. I was excited for him. He's a guy I had heard about the most, from the European regional leagues. People were hyping him up as being pretty talented. And also I thought Excel was going to be a decent team. And with two big carries in JaeYool and Patrick, I thought Excel would be pretty good. And I thought JaeYool and Patrick would be able to play off of each other and enable each other. If you have two big threats to worry about, it kind of makes it easier for both of them. And that's kind of what I envisioned. Unfortunately, JaeYool did not really show up. Excel did not really have as good of a split as I thought they were going to. JaeYool definitely didn't perform as well as I was hyping him up to. He wasn't, definitely was not the best young new mid laner. I definitely think that would go to Vetheo. JaeYool had a lot of poor performances. When I would watch the games, he had a lot of plays where kind of cost his team in some big moments. Didn't really, perform as well as he would have needed to. Overall, I would just say it was a disappointing split for JaeYool. I still think he has a ton of talent. I think he has a ton of promise. He's a new, inexperienced guy, made some rookie mistakes. Hopefully he can learn from them. Hopefully he can continue to improve. Obviously, I had high hopes and expectations for him coming in the year. That's not all dead yet, just off one kind of below average split. You can still get better over time. You can still continue to develop. But I don't think he was consistent or good enough to warrant a B tier by any means. I'm definitely going to be dropping him down to the C tier, and that's kind of what I think is going on there. Next up, we have Nisqy, and I actually got, I believe, a decent amount of flack for putting Nisqy in the B tier coming into the season. He's a guy who was pretty good in the LCS at times. There was some splits where, he won first team all LCS, which I thought was a joke. I don't really think that ever I would have said, in my opinion, was he ever better than Bjergsen or Jensen in the LCS, but those are the narratives, and when Cloud9's playing so well, apparently every single one of their players has to be on the first team. I wasn't a big fan of Nisqy. When we've seen him at international competition, he got, mid-diff really, really hard. He plays that roaming mid style really, really well. He tries to facilitate for the team, and when he was on Cloud9, it worked out really well, and it allowed Blabber to pop off. But that's not always the meta, and sometimes you got to play control mages and you got to go toe-to-toe, and I don't think Nisqy has ever done that well. And I think when he's faced the best mid laners in the LCS or in the LEC or even at international competition at Worlds and stuff, those matchups have not gone well for him, and he's looked like a very, very average mid laner. So, he's a very, very good mid laner at one play style and pretty pedestrian at all other play styles, in my opinion. And going over to Fnatic, moving over to the LEC, which should have better mid laners, should be harder competition. I didn't see a reason to put him in the A tier, the S tier, or anything like that. And after this season with Fnatic, where overall they were pretty disappointing. I don't know if they ended up 9-9 or somewhere right around there. I think they had 9 wins and 9 losses. I don't think Nisqy was particularly at fault for Fnatic's rough season, but I don't think he popped off either. I think he was just not that great. He had low damage per minute. He had low kill participation. This is a guy who's supposed to be all about roaming and playing for the team. Yeah, he had low kill participation. He had one of the lowest kill participations in the entire league, but while still having that low damage share. It just overall, he just didn't get a whole lot of anything done. Overall, he's fine in lane. He didn't have a ton of terrible performances or anything, but he just didn't do a whole lot of anything. He definitely didn't carry or pop off how Fnatic would have wanted, and it's not like he enabled Self-Made to have some amazing split either. So overall, I don't want to blame too much on Nisqy for Fnatic struggles, but I don't think he deserves an entire pass for the whole season either. I had him as a B tier mid laner coming in. Again, I got some pullback and some resistance for that, but to me, he's still there. If I look at this top 5 mid laners, I would put Nisqy at number 5 right now. That would be B tier for me, and that's where we would go. Is Nisqy, you know, obviously when you look at like overall talent and stuff, is he maybe better in Vetheo? You know, sure, maybe. Could you argue he maybe had a better split than Humanoid? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I wouldn't say so, but I could see how you'd make those cases. But to me, it's a real close in the middle between like Humanoid, Vetheo, Nisqy, even Abbedagge, who did better between those guys, and they're pretty interchangeable. But this is what I'm going. I think Nisqy a little bit more disappointing. Obviously, I think Nisqy plays on a better team than Vetheo, and if you switch them around, again, how would that work? How would that go? But also, Vetheo is a much more inexperienced player, where I think he has a chance to really continue to build off this split into the summer and continue to improve and get better, where Nisqy is still having some of the same issues we've seen him having for years and years and years. And he can be very good, and he has been, but you know, I'm not the biggest fan there. Next up, we have Humanoid. This guy, really hard for me to rate, because this guy we have seen be, without a doubt, an S-tier mid laner in the LEC before. He's been an absolute monster. He's been a beast. He's been an MVP candidate. And this split, he, you know, wasn't all that. Did not have as amazing of a split maybe as he usually does. Mad Lions as a whole was up and down. But I mean, by the end of the year, they still ended up with the 3rd best record in the LEC. They have the 3 seed going into the playoffs. And hopefully they'll be a scary team in the playoffs. I know that some of Mad Lions players said that they perform better on stage, so they think they'll be able to do better now that LEC playoffs are going to be on stage and everything. And yes, Humanoid did not have his greatest split personally, but when you look at the stats, this guy was perhaps the best laner in the LEC. Gold differential at 15, pretty crazy. You know, he was able to get leads and stuff. Maybe Mad Lions didn't always use those leads the best. Maybe he didn't always use those leads the best. Obviously, you know, looking at their record and how up and down they were over the course of the season. But Humanoid, I still think, is a very, very talented guy. And even if he is inconsistent and stuff a little bit, again, you know, LEC mid laners as a whole were kind of down the split. I still think this is one of the better ones. I'm really a big fan of Humanoid. I think he is still very, very talented. And for me, I had him as A tier coming into the year just because I wasn't sure if Mad Lions was still going to kind of be riding the downward trajectory from, you know, flaming out at the end of Summer Split, flaming out at Worlds, not even making it to the group stage, how they were going to work with their new players in Aloya and Arma and everything. But overall, you know, Mad Lions has been okay. They haven't looked amazing. Humanoid has been pretty good, not great. And I still have him as an A-tier mid laner right now. Does he have his issues? Does he have some things you could pick apart? Yes, but overall, I think he's been pretty good. And I think he's going to... I expect him to have a good playoffs, and I think he'll be good going into the summer split as well. I think Mad Lions should hopefully continue to improve. And I think Humanoid's a big part of that team, obviously. Next up, we get into Larssen, headed into the split. I had him as A tier. I had him as the 2nd best mid laner. I was really hyped up for Rogue. I was really hyped up for him. I thought Larssen was going to have a really, really good year, but it was tough for me to put him in the S tier when you have Caps in the mid lane. It's tough to put anybody, you know, in a lot of these positions, it's tough to put guys on the same tier as some of these G2 players, but especially Caps, who I consider to probably be the best player in the entire LEC. It's like, is Larssen really in the same tier as him? But when you look at how Rogue performed this year, when you look at how Larssen performed this year, he was an absolute monster and is absolutely deserving of that S tier. He had Rogue in an awesome, awesome position. Obviously, they end up finishing with the 2nd best record. He was great. His stats are great. He's had amazing performances. He's been consistent. He's been a beast. Again, the only knock you can have against a lot of these Rogue guys is that they haven't shown up against G2. That, you know, they all played pretty poorly against G2. They've got just clapped pretty much every single time they've played G2 the last couple of years, and they need to get over that hurdle. They need to get over that hump of the mental block or just the you know, learning from their mistakes and whatever to be able to beat G2. But Larssen's been a beast. He had a great season. He's S tier. And then we get into Mr. Caps. I had him coming into the season as the best mid laner. I still think he's the best mid laner now. He's one of my favorite players really in the entire world. You know, Bjergsen was my favorite player forever, but it's so hard to not root for these G2 guys, not root for Caps. I think he's a monster. He can play all the different play styles. He is an absolute beast in the mid lane. He's so fun to watch. Does he have his moments of inting and limit testing and going crazy? And yeah, definitely for sure. But I think he's at the core of this G2 team. He's so much of what helps them tick. I think he's still probably the best player in the entire LEC. I think he's still the best mid laner in the LEC. You know, there is arguments to be made for Larssen or Inspired or some of these guys or even other G2 members or whatever. But I mean, to me, Caps is absolute world class. The LEC is very lucky to have him. G2 is lucky to have him, and we're all lucky to get to see him play. I'm definitely keeping him in the S tier, keeping him as the best mid laner in the LEC right now. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is my LEC mid lane tier list. My thoughts and opinions on all 10 players that we saw starting out the season in the LEC for our mid laners. Definitely drop a like if you did enjoy. Leave a comment down below. What do you think about my tier list? What would you change? What I get right? What I get wrong? What does your tier list look like? I'd love your guys' thoughts and opinions. Subscribe to stay up to date on all my latest content. Hopefully I catch you guys in the next one. But until then, peace!